What's happening, everybody? Thanks for checking out Hunt, Shoot, Live. I'm going to switch it up big time on this episode today and talk some about reloading. I want to share some pro tips, I guess you would say, in regard to reloading. That's actually some tips that I think if you're just getting into it, or even if you've been doing reloading a while, don't just fast forward through this video, because I'm going to share 4 or 5 different things that I have picked up over the years in regard to reloading, or specifically precision hand loading, that I think can really save you some time and save you some frustration that I wish somebody would have told me from the very beginning when I started reloading these things. So, you know, I'm not going to cover some of the traditional stuff, the how-tos of reloading. You can find that on 1,000 other videos on YouTube. So today I'm going to get into the very specifics about what I think are some awesome things that even the beginner in reloading can grab a hold of these tips and take those and use those to your advantage in reloading. So the very first thing I wish that someone had told me, or someone had shown me how to use, or recommended to me whenever I first started reloading, was a hand deprimer. Now, there's several benefits to these, and there's a couple brands available. Mine happens to be the Frankford Arsenal hand depriming tool. This it comes with several different little collets, I guess you would say. They attach to the very bottom of it right here, and you can use them for the whole range of calibers, just with 3 different little collets. But all you do is you take your round that you just shot, you plug it right in there, push that down, squeeze, and then look right here in this little tube, it collects all of your primers in there. Now, why is this beneficial? Something that I never thought about whenever I first started reloading. Nobody told me necessarily. And specifically when I got into precision hand loading. What this allows you to do, you know, that's a very dirty process. At that point, your round has been shot. You've got all kinds of that residue, the carbon or whatever that's spent from the round that you just shot. Your primer's got nastiness in it. Your primer pocket's going to be nasty. So this allows you, before you put all that junk into your dies, this allows you to knock the primer out and move on to the cleaning stage before you begin putting this stuff in your dies and getting grit and grime and dirt and all that into those. So the Frankford Arsenal hand deprimer or something similar, I strongly recommend. You know, this is something too that you can do as an easy first stage in reloading, that you don't have to do at your reloading bench. You can go down, sit with the family, and have your bullets sitting beside of you, and you're just sitting there while you guys are watching TV, and it's nothing to just plug these in. Reach over, grab the next one, plug it in. I mean, you know, so really cool first step, and it allows you to keep your other products cleaner as you move on. So I strongly recommend that, specifically for the precision people, because it's going to allow you to keep your parts more consistent, your working parts more consistent later on, specifically your resizing die, you know, your bullet seating die. So we get rid of this here, and then we move on to a cleaning step. And the cleaning step is hot tip number 2. For years, I reloaded, and I did not worry about doing the tumbler and all that kind of stuff. I hand cleaned my ammo, and I hand cleaned it good, but you know, it still didn't look all polished up and shiny and all that. But when I first got into long range shooting, a good friend of mine who was already doing some long range shooting and hand loading, he told me, he's like, man, wow, you know, we were talking about it, and I told him that I didn't clean my brass, and he said, if you're getting into the precision long range stuff, you need to get an ultrasonic cleaner. Let me show you guys my ultrasonic cleaner. This is what I've got. This is what an ultrasonic cleaner is. You can set the temperature, make it really hot, or leave it room temperature, and this is the amount of time that you're going to vibrate it. But it vibrates ultrasonic, and you got your cases that you put in here. You use distilled water. Here is the I use the Hornady One Shot. This stuff doesn't take much at all. But I love the ultrasonic because what it allows me to do, you know, you think about precision hand loading. When you're loading around, you want everything as consistent as possible. And the consistency, really the majority of that happens on the inside of your case, because any changes in your case capacity is going to change your amount of velocity. So it makes sense to not worry as much about cleaning off the outside, which is all a tumbler does, unless you're using really tiny media. But it makes much more sense to clean off the inside of this round, because you want the exact same case capacity every single time. Well, if you shot around once, then twice, 3 times, and you've not cleaned the inside of the case, then you're going to end up with less case capacity every single time. You're going to be changing your pressure every single time. And even small changes matter significantly if you're trying to hit stuff at 1,000+ yards. So, you know, hey, if you're not worried about that, then don't worry about this. But I love long-range shooting. I'm trying to hit stuff 1,000+ yards. So every single little bitty thing matters to me. And I can prove it. I can see it in my results that paying attention to these details, every detail that I'm sharing in this video, makes a difference in your long-range precision. So an ultrasonic cleaner, and hey, it's fine if you want to use your tumbler, but you see how pretty this brass is. All I did with this was clean it in the ultrasonic. Run it in there. I normally will run it on a 30-minute cycle, shake it a little bit, run it on another 30-minute cycle, let it dry, and there you go. Hot tip too on how to dry it. You can buy these Hornady case dryers for like $75. If you got your jerky dehydrator with the trays, that's all you got to use. Get your jerky dehydrator, lay all your brass out on your trays, put it in there for about an hour. Your stuff's going to be 100% dry. So really super hot tips. Wish I'd have got this ultrasonic cleaner years ago. Got it off of Amazon, probably paid $50 for it. And now Hornady sells them and you pay more for it. But this is just a jeweler's ultrasonic cleaner and it works absolutely perfect. Cleans my cases beautifully. You know, sometimes I will finish them up and there'll still be just a little bit of crud in the primer pockets. Still clean my primer pockets by hand just a little, just to make sure that they're nice and clean. But love my ultrasonic cleaner. So, you know, number 1, I recommend to deprime, the hand deprimer. Step number 2, then I recommend having the ultrasonic cleaner to clean your brass. Then next you move on, of course, to your resizing. I don't have any major tips there for resizing. Over the years, I've went through, using the balance scales, and I bought a couple different balance scales, and I'm trying to find, of course, when I got into long-range shooting, of course, I want the most precise thing that I can possibly get. What's that going to be? Didn't like the balance scales. Got to looking, and to get a really good one, you're paying $500 for just the balance scale. I wanted, you can get some of those, like the RCBS that measures it out for you electronically. Even with that, there's some variance, and you still need a good scale to confirm its measurement. So the coolest thing that I found, and I even got I got a Hornady digital scale. It's a good scale, but it only measures to the 10th place. I found this on Amazon. I think I paid $30 for it, just a jeweler's scale. But what I was looking for was a jeweler's scale that weighed out to the 100th place, so to the 0.00 spot. And the reason for that, you get to thinking about it. Let's say you're wanting to load in your 300 Win Mag, because this is what I load. You're wanting to load 70.5 grains of powder. Well, what I was seeing with the old Hornady one that I have, and even with your balance scales, what I was seeing with the old Hornady one that I have, and it worked. It showed me 70.5 or 70.4. Now, let's say you're loading 70.5 grains, and I don't know what tolerance these have, but there's really a big difference when you're talking about each grain that you put in between 70.5 and 70.6. And really, what I've seen with what I load anyway, I load IMR 7828 in my 300 Win Mag, which is my precision rifle. Each individual grain that I add, it adds about 1/100th of a grain to my measurement. But you don't get that if you don't have the scale that shows you 1/100th of a grain measurements. And that's what this jeweler scale shows me. So technically, with my Hornady scale, I could weigh a load that says 70.5 and then put it on my jeweler scale and it only says 70.47. So what it's telling me is I'm actually, your Hornady scale is kind of rounding it up a little bit. It's rounding to that closest tenth, whereas these are going to get you to the closest 100th. That means I can get so much more precise. Now, hey, if you ain't worried about that, if you ain't worried about hitting stuff at 1,000+ yards, that's not going to interest you. But, I can remember even when I started trying to shoot groundhogs at 400 and 500 yards, it would have been good to know this. I reloaded and I took my time, but what a difference in shrinking my groups and in decreasing the number of times I get those random flyers. I'm able to be so meticulous. I can load down precisely to the 100th position when I'm reloading, 100th of a grain, and that is super awesome, super helpful. So get you a good $30, $35, Amazon, a jeweler scale that measures to the 100th place, tenths, 100ths. Very helpful. When I first started, I just would buy, or for years really reloading, I would buy just plain old RCBS or whatever reloading dies. And I'm not knocking that, but what I started seeing, not really even necessarily when I got into the long range target shooting, but even when I first started groundhog hunting, I started noticing, man, my shots are a little inconsistent. So I started trying to hone in on it, and one of the first things that I noticed that is wild, and there's kind of two things within this same category that I want to share with you. Your bullet seating depth can be all over the place. Each bullet can have a little bit of variance in its overall length because manufacturers are not necessarily as worried about the precise overall length. The only thing that they have to actually get dead on, or that they're concerned about getting dead on, is going to be the main part of the mold or the length to the ogive. Now the ogive is going to be this part where the bullet actually forms to the caliber specific measurements. This is two of my 210 grain Burger VLDs out of the same lot. This one is measuring 1.469. This is measuring 1.469. This other bullet right out of the same lot is measuring 1.467, 1.466. That one's close, 1.469, 1.471. And you can just keep measuring, and I've done this before. I have seen in the same lot, in the same box of bullets, you can get as much as 10 thousandths difference in your overall length of your bullets. So now, again, back to that precision reloading. If you are not paying attention to that, and you don't have something that's going to allow you to measure a little bit more consistently than that, then you're going to have overall lengths that's going to be all over the place. So your cartridge overall length and the length to your lands, your setting of your cartridge to your lands, might vary as much as 10 or more thousandths. That's not cool. So here's the hot tip. Here's the pro tip. A Hornady Comparator. These, they're like $30 for the whole set that comes with all kinds of different comparators. But what this does in the comparator is this little silver piece. It comes with these different silver pieces. Comes with these little different silver inserts that insert into this red thing depending on what caliber you're using. And what it does is, instead of it recognizes the fact that these bullet tips might vary just a little bit. You know, the very ends might vary just a little, but it measures to the ogive of the bullet. So it measures to a portion of the bullet every single time that is absolutely not going to vary. So this little comparator, you get your calipers and it clips on to the bottom part. It just screws right onto the bottom part of your calipers. Super, super easy to attach. And then, of course, you're establishing a new overall length because now you've added this in. But it gives you a consistent one every time that doesn't vary for, depending on the length of the individual bullets. That has been so helpful because my bullets now are truly contacting the lands at the same place every time, instead of being just all over the place. And I use that in conjunction with my micrometer on my bullet seating die. This is the next thing that I encourage you to get. I struggled initially because I got the comparator before I got the micrometer, and that drove me nuts because I knew that I needed a precise adjustment and I couldn't get it without the micrometer. So what the micrometer allows you to do is to get very precise adjustments. You seat your bullet, you measure it. Let's say it's still 5 thousandths too long. Well, you adjust this down 5 thousandths, press it again, boom, there you go. It allows you to get precision adjustments in your seating depth, and that is so helpful to ensure that you get every single one of them to the same length. So those things I wish somebody would have told me about when I started reloading. Use the hand deprimer. Then put them in an ultrasonic cleaner before you run them through your dies so they get good and clean beforehand. Get yourself a really, really good set of jeweler scales that measures down to the 100th position, and you can really load extremely precisely when you do that. Get yourself a good comparator that attaches to your calipers so you can measure to the ogive and get a good, accurate, true overall length. Stop measuring to the tip of the bullet. And then also get yourself a micrometer. Those things, all of those things together, not crazy expensive stuff. I think even Hornady makes one that's seems like all this stuff is in the $30 range, but I swear this was like 30 bucks. You can get this little micrometer that attaches to some of their dies. I've got this on one of my Grendel dies. I had a Hornady Grendel die and I bought the micrometer for it. Super helpful. The hand deprimer, the ultrasonic cleaner, the jeweler scales, the comparator, and the micrometer. All of that stuff is absolutely worth what you spend. It's not super expensive, and it's just going to change your level of precision, and it's going to decrease your frustration too whenever you reload. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I enjoy hand loading, and as I've got into it more and implemented these things, that has helped me to like it even more, because it's like mowing your yard, man. You hate doing it, really, the act of it a lot of times, but when you're done, you sit back and you look at it and you're like, man, that's quality. These tools allow you to do that with your reloading process. You can do it better, and when you're done, you're like, man, that looks good. And most importantly, when you go shoot, you see the results and you see the benefits of that precision. So hope you enjoyed this. Appreciate you guys checking this out. Be sure to check us. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. We've got new videos coming out every single Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook. Check out the Hunt, Shoot, Live podcast. Go to your favorite podcast platform, type in Hunt, Shoot, Live, look us up. We release a new episode of those every week. So appreciate you guys. God bless. We'll see you next time.